Hey everybody, welcome back to my channel. I'm recording out here in the yard, and just as I got set up it started to sprinkle for like a couple of minutes, and now it seems to have stopped, but it's been threatening all day, so we'll see if I get this done out here. Anyway, today I want to talk a bit about monochrome or black and white photography and photo styles, which is what Panasonic Lumix calls built-in camera profiles. Other cameras, Canon calls them picture styles, I believe. So these are basic profiles you can set in the camera that will create a JPEG with a pre-selected style. Those also get written to the raw file, so if your photo editor reads the raw information, it can apply those adjustments. Adobe Lightroom actually is able to read those and has those photo styles, the Lumix photo styles and Canon photo styles, and probably Nikon as well. I'm guessing Sony, probably all the major manufacturers, but you can select any of those when you're in Lightroom and other programs to apply a particular style to an image. So on Lumix cameras, we essentially have a natural profile, which is relatively flat, non-contrasty. That's what I generally shoot in. You also have standard, you have scenery, you have vivid, and you have monochrome profiles. The monochrome profiles, the current ones that the newer cameras, like starting with the G9, have are the regular monochrome, what's called L-Monochrome, and L-Monochrome D. And the two differences between the L-Monochrome and L-Monochrome D is contrast. The L-Monochrome D has even more contrast than the L-Monochrome does, which is more contrasty than the monochrome setting. And the cool thing about these monochrome profiles is that you can apply color filter settings to them. So when you're shooting black and white photography, it's actually, if you're shooting film, currently or back when film was you used colored filters over the lens to get a specific look. So for a good example is, you see Ansel Adams' black and white photographs of landscapes with a really dark blue sky and bright puffy clouds. And he did that by using a red filter over the lens, because the red filter blocks out the blue light, which causes the blue sky to get very dark, leaving the white clouds very white and puffy. It's rather common to use a yellow filter in general in black and white photography. So these are things that you can always apply. Now, depending on how old your Lumix camera is, and as I mentioned in another video, I found this refurbished Lumix ZS100 1-inch sensor point and shoot online for a nice price, so I bought it. Wanted to have something small that's a little bit more versatile than a phone, because it has a 25mm to 250mm equivalent zoom lens. Phones don't do that. Well, some do. Quality-wise, this is going to be better. But the other thing, and again, I'm talking about Lumix cameras here. If you have a different camera system, check your manual. But there are also, besides those profiles, there are also what are called filter effects. And on a Lumix camera, and again, this is something that all the camera manufacturers do, but on a Lumix camera, if you look at the dial, you'll see between, if you go to program and then past intelligent auto, between that and the scene mode is a little palette, little artist palette with a brush, and that's where your filter effects are. And there are a bunch of them built in. And I gotta be honest, I was not big into filter effects in general. And really with the Lumix camera, I've just found one in particular that I like, the Dynamic Monochrome. But the one previous to this that I liked was, I had the original Sony RX100, and that had a watercolor filter effect, which I thought was pretty good. I'm going to put up a picture here. This is a historic ice cream shop in my town. And I showed this picture to somebody, and they said, wow, that has a real Edward Hopper vibe to it. I have not found anything like that in any other camera makes. So if you want that kind of look, you either got to do that in post or shoot Sony. The other thing that I've found with Lumix cameras, that when I shot Canon, this was not something I think Canon did. Because what I found with Canon cameras is if you tried using a filter effect, it actually locked you out of shooting RAW. So you couldn't, I think that even did that with RAW plus JPEG. If you're a Canon shooter, correct me on this if I'm wrong. But with the Lumix cameras, you can apply filter effects. And if you set the camera to RAW plus JPEG, you will get a RAW file with all of the information. And if you set this camera to a monochrome filter effect, you'll get a JPEG as well that has the filter effect burned into it. I realized while editing that I forgot to mention that if you're not into shooting RAW and you don't want to edit a RAW, there is a way for the camera to shoot two JPEGs, one with the filter, one without the filter. And you just go into the menu, and under the camera icon, you'll find the filter settings. And there's an option in there to simultaneously record without filter. Now, you cannot do this if you're set to RAW or RAW plus JPEG, obviously. But you also can't do it if you're set to continuous autofocus or you're set to continuous drive. So it's single shot drive and single shot autofocus only where that's available. Otherwise, you got to shoot RAW plus JPEG. But what I found also that's nice, you do not have to have the mode dial set to that little palette icon to use the filter effects. You actually can use any of those filter effects in the program, aperture priority, shutter priority, and manual modes, which is pretty cool. And the way you do this is if you look at your screen, and whether it's a point and shoot like this or whether it's the G9 I'm filming on, you'll see that same little icon on the right side of your screen. And if you pop onto the little palette icon, it pops out a submenu. It's a soft menu, and there's a little icon at the top with that same icon with a little X, which means it's turned off. If you tap that, it then turns, real hard to see. I have this camera set to the Dynamic Monochrome filter effect. So if I want to use that in any of the modes, I'm set on program now, I can do that. Not only that, there's an icon that shows which filter effect is in use, and if you tap that, that will take you back to the menu where you can set any filter effect. So that's really cool. And at the bottom, there's another icon. That icon actually lets you adjust the strength of the filter effect. In the case of Dynamic Monochrome, it actually lets you adjust the contrast up and down. So, get to specifically, the reason I like the Dynamic Monochrome filter effect, especially on this ZS100, is it's a really contrasty black and white. And the ZS100 is old enough. It's actually predates the GX95, where the L-Monochrome photo style made its debut. This only has the regular monochrome photo style. So if you want a real quick contrasty black and white image, the Dynamic Monochrome filter effect is the way to go. And so it's very contrasty. So if the contrast is not to your liking, you can dial that down. The other thing that I think is, and this is a great thing about mirrorless cameras as well as point and shoots. I do not look down my nose at point and shoots, especially really good ones like the ZS100. But the nice thing is if you're interested in shooting black and white, you get to see the black and white in the viewfinder or on the screen. Whereas previously with SLRs, digital SLRs, you couldn't. You could actually look after the fact to see what the image looked like, but you couldn't see as you were shooting. And I saw a comment on another YouTube channel that was talking about black and white photography, and there was a comment that said, but the commenter felt that actually capturing an image in black and white, rather than doing that in post, is a superior way of doing things. And I tend to lean that way. I think that when you see an image, shooting it in black and white at the time of capture makes a lot of sense. And additionally, having your camera set to black and white when you are intent on getting black and white photographs helps you see how the camera is seeing things in black and white. So, you know, the brain's a funny thing. The brain can adapt and actually start to recognize what something's going to look like in black and white if you do this enough. So I think that's a really, really important thing. Anyway, I want to put up some images that I've taken over the past few weeks using the Dynamic Monochrome setting on this little ZS, plus some L-Monochrome, might be L-Monochrome D, I forget which one I use now, taken with the G95. So here's a little show, and hope you enjoy it. Well, that's it for today. Hopefully this was helpful and informative to you. If it was, please hit that like button. If you have any questions, comments, pop them down below. I try to respond as soon as possible. Sometimes it might be a few days depending on what's going on around here. But if you're a subscriber, thank you so much for subscribing. I really appreciate it. I'm Todd Banner. I'll see you next time.